I consider my programs to be transformation programs, like identity shifts, transformations, whatever you want to call it, that lead to the consequence of better health.
You are listening to The Dr. Haley Show, the podcast dedicated to helping you optimize your health. Each episode, there will be an interview or a message to help you discover better health. We will be featuring health radicals on the show to bring new ideas to the table, as well as doubling down on key fundamentals to support you living your best life. Your host is no other than the founder of Haley Nutrition, Dr. Michael Haley.
I'm Dr. Michael Haley, and this is the Dr. Haley Show podcast. Today, we're going to help you find the things that are getting in the way of you achieving your optimal weight, your optimal energy levels. Today's guest is Justin Nault. He's a certified nutritional therapist, founder and CEO of Clovis. You'll find that at iamclovis.com. Justin helps people break free from toxic diet cultures, heal their bodies, and find self-love through nutrition, mindset, and daily habits for true lasting transformation. How many of you have tried a diet only to lose weight and then gain it all back and then some? After this, I'm confident you're going to want to absorb more of Justin's content. You'll find he has an awesome YouTube channel. He's on Instagram, has a huge Facebook following. I'll have links in the description where you can subscribe to get more of Justin Nault's content. Justin, thank you for joining me today on the Dr. Haley Show podcast. I find you to be someone a lot like me. We have similar backgrounds growing up. I grew up a lot before you, but that's a whole nother story. But, you know, nutrition wasn't your first career.
No, most definitely not.
Tell me about your music career so I can have a little understanding and who you are, and then how did you end up getting into nutrition?
Sure. Yeah, it's all kind of blended together. You know, I started playing piano in public, I guess, when I was 8 years old. So from the time I was very young, I got a lot of external validation for being talented. It's like, this is the next Billy Joel. And I had this, like, it was amazing. It was a really fun experience. So my kind of identity was built around being a performer. But I was a chubby kid growing up, right? In the 90s, the politically incorrect term, fat kid, quote unquote, you know? And, but I grew up in an era where, you know, the movie stars were Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. So I just really developed body dysmorphia, like, quite young, and was performing a lot. And then, so at 15 years old, my dad allowed me to start lifting weights. I started punishing myself, just lifting weights 2 hours a day, running on a treadmill an hour a day, just like trying to get the weight off. And that carried with me. I ended up, doing a lot of performances and stuff in high school, which led me to apply to Berklee College of Music. I went to music school in Boston.
Oh, wow.
And that's kind of launched my music career. You know, I started playing professionally when I was 17 years old. And in Boston, I started boxing, and I was bodybuilding at Gold's Gym and just a ton of fitness. And then moved down to Nashville after I got my degree in songwriting. And that turned into 300 shows a year. I had a reality TV show on ABC by the time I was 25. I had a YouTube music channel going, music videos and stuff like that. So I was quite literally living under spotlights with tremendous body dysmorphia. And the only thing that I knew to do was just train harder, right? Eat less, move more, eat less, move more. So I just did this.
Isn't that like what we were taught? You know, you just have to work out every day, a few hours every day, and you know, don't miss a day. If you miss a day, okay, maybe you can take it off on Sunday, but make up for it on Monday.
100%. And I was that guy. I was so neurotic in my mind. Like, if I took on something like the P90X program, I would be, let's say, 18 days in. And if I missed a day, I would go back to day one and start and over again. It's unacceptable unless I do the full 90-day pro. Like, I was just savage about this stuff. And no matter what I did, you know, I became a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. I weighed 160 pounds. I was deadlifting 425 pounds and powerlifting and constantly injuring myself. CrossFit 2-a-days, like everything. And it was after the TV show. I was probably 26 at the time. And I was like, I'm missing something, because I was probably like 23, 24% body fat, just training my face off all the time and constantly just having low energy and not feeling very good. And that was when I found the paleo diet. And I did my first paleo reset, and it was like a magic bullet. I just started melting body fat, and I was like, this is crazy. Where has this been all my life? And that was when I started getting deep into nutrition. And because I was doing well in the music industry, and at that point, like I owned a couple houses and was just playing shows at night, and my days were my own. And so I just started studying pretty deeply, and I became a nutritional therapist to treat myself. I wanted to learn about epigenetics and these types of things. And around that same time, universally, whatever you want to call it, my niece was born terminally disabled. So she was having over 300 seizures per day. She was put immediately into the pediatric ICU at 7 days old, and they ran over $1 million in testing on her. So we got drop kicked into like real mainstream medicine. Like she was given less than 3 years to live. So it's like, this is a emergency situation. And they ended up having to put a G tube in her stomach to feed her through a feeding tube. And what they do in the medical community is the ketogenic diet is to suppress seizures. It's like used for seizures. So you probably know that. So that was my first intro to the keto diet as we know it, which was a wild introduction. And the way that they do this with babies is they just give them a formula that's a quote unquote ketogenic formula. And the formula is called Keto Cal.
Did it suppress her seizures?
Unfortunately, Savannah did not turn out to be epileptic. So this is usually they'll use it to treat epileptic children. There's actually an entire organization called the Charlie Foundation that helps families manage seizures through the ketogenic diet and lifestyle. So they were kind of throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks because they couldn't figure out what Savannah was dealing with. She ended up not being epileptic. It was something called KCNQ2, and she was one of 96 living cases in the world. It's like really, really gnarly diagnosis. But this is where my brand comes from and where my passion for this comes from is they gave her this ketogenic baby formula. But as I know, because I've looked at your background and everything, is in mainstream medicine, quality is not thought about much.
Right.
So they say, okay, we need a keto baby formula. So it's got to be high fat, low carb. And Gerber makes a formula called Keto Cal, and it's high fat, low carb. But I looked at the ingredients and it's like all hydrogenated vegetable oils and artificial flavorings and sweeteners, and all the vitamins are synthetic forms of the vitamins. So I brought it to the attention of the neurologist at the time, and he looks at the ingredients, he looks at me and he says, I never thought to check that. And that was the end for me. That's how we got here now. That was 10 years ago. I started my brand about 8 years ago, and I just got online. I was doing Facebook Lives, and I was telling people, hey, I've gone down this. I started reading books about like books like Medical Nemesis and like learning about mainstream medicine and big food, big pharma, the corruption and the ties between them. And I actually made a baby formula in my kitchen with food dehydrators and food processors using Paleo Superfoods. Oh, cool. We started giving that to Savannah through her feeding tube, and that was approved by the neurologist as well. He was like, oh, this is better. And then I ended up putting a bunch of collagen protein in that and selling it online as my first protein powder to CrossFitters. And here we are, is after sharing my story and helping people get healthy just kind of organically on Facebook. 8 years later, it's almost 1 million followers and thousands of transformations. And I'm here with you today.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I like about that too is when you made formulas, supplements, there's a difference between a supplement and a nutrient dense supplement that comes from food.
Yes.
Most of the supplements that we see on the shelves are like chemical soup. One of the things you mentioned in that formula was hydrogenated oils. What's a hydrogenated oil? Is that like a seed oil? No, it's actually when you take maybe like a seed oil and you add hydrogen to it, breaking the double bonds. It's a chemical process. And
you're attempting to stabilize it,
Yeah, and you're feeding chemicals to the people. There's a big difference. It's an interesting time too, because there's this guy RFK that's going to help change the food system, and I think this is a good thing. However, it's probably going to affect processed foods mostly, which is going to affect a lot of people, and it should make a huge difference as we take chemicals out of food and replace blue number 10 with blueberry coloring or something like that. There's going to be more real food in the foods if this goes down the way we hope it does. But there's still processed foods.
Of course.
Where should we be getting our macros from?
Yeah, in a perfect world, when we go back in time, I really like to kind of shed light on the advice we've been given that less food is better. Right. So everything that I teach online is built around a concept called food versus poison. And I try to help people see that if we're talking about actual food, species appropriate food that belongs in your body, food is only good for you in any amount. if we're talking about poison, poison is only bad for you in any amount. And now we have an ultra processed food environment where 75% of what people are eating was literally made in a lab, like by food engineers. Oh, yeah. So I like to have people travel back in time. Like there's a document called the 1939 Yearbook of Agriculture. And at that time in the 30s, I think it was still over 20% of Americans actually lived on a working farm where they're providing all of the food for themselves. And we didn't have crazy monocrop agriculture really heavily until after World War II. So we had the situation where it's like beautiful, nutrient-dense soil, people living off the land that they live on. And most of what they would have been getting would be like eggs, red meat, maybe some chicken, whole milk, and maybe bread that had 4 ingredients like salt, water, yeast, flour, not like the 23 ingredients we see today in Wonder Bread or whatever. Right. So in a perfect world, you'd be getting your food really from nature, from farm, from the land that you live on and what grows seasonally in your area.
Yeah.
We're a far cry from that now. But the reason I cite the 1939 Yearbook of Agriculture is because it tracked the diets of Americans living in New York City at the time. And the average 155-pound male was consuming 4,200 calories a day.
Oh, wow.
And there was really no obesity, really no heart disease, really no type 2 diabetes. Maybe you could find some outliers, but certainly not in epidemic numbers.
My wife and I were watching this documentary on TV, and, we're looking at video from like the 1920s. Mm-hmm. And it's like, holy crap, what's missing in this picture? There's 50 people on screen right now. What's missing? Obesity.
Yeah.
It wasn't there. Not a single overweight person in that documentary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's astonishing to look at. And we have to think about, it's very, very easy to draw. I'm sure you've seen the graphs where it's like we look at the hockey stick growth in obesity, and then we plug in a line for the introduction of seed oils to the American diet. Or we plug in a line for the use of electronic devices with blue lights in our eyeballs all the time. And like no one's going outside in the sun. Nobody's spending time in the grass, all these things. We're really so disconnected from nature is the thing. And when everything that we have is artificial, I think of it like a computer, right? If I have a computer and my operating system needs code to run and do what I want it to do. Well, if I give it proper code, the machine's going to do exactly what I want it to do. If I give it code that is a malware virus, then the operating system is going to malfunction. Now, should I say, what a terrible broken machine this is? I hate this machine. This is the machine's fault. Or should I just think about the code that I've run into the system? And that's what the ultra-processed food environment and the marketing propaganda that caused us to focus on calories instead of nutrient density has led people to believe, and this is why all the work I do, I lead with self-love, is it's led people to blame their bodies, and their body becomes the enemy, right? Like I need an injection or a pill or a potion because my stupid body is just storing fat and blah, blah. And it becomes the body is like evil. Rather than looking at the information we've been given, the inputs that we're putting into this beautiful adaptation machine, our bodies are miracles, man. And they're just desperately trying to adapt to the environment that we're giving them. But the propaganda machine is so strong. And by the way, in the 1980s, cigarette companies bought 80% of food companies to do this, to push this propaganda around calories and everything. So it's really, we're in kind of dire straits where we have to help people love themselves enough to feel worthy of optimal health. And that's a strange place to be.
Yeah. Let's focus on that for a little bit. If I was quoting Tina Turner, what's love got to do with it?
Yeah, man. It's everything.
Yeah. I've heard you say that that's the starting point for helping someone with their nutritional, with their overweight, with their obesity, getting back on track.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I start everyone with. So they come in, they think of it as a weight loss program. I consider my programs to be transformation programs, like identity shifts, transformations, whatever you want to call it, that lead to the consequence of better health. So it's like there are actions in life and there are consequences, and that's it, right? So people come in and that you get a custom nutrition plan. I'm going to run you through a health assessment. I'm going to tell you what to eat, how much to eat, when to eat, all these things. But the very first PDF exercise that you get from me is you're going to stand in a mirror, look yourself in the eyes, and you're going to say, I love you out loud 10 times. and you're going to try your very best to mean it, even if you think you're faking it right now.
Mm.
And you would be astounded by what happens here, man. I mean, that's the biggest pushback I get of what people don't want to do is
Yeah.
getting in that mirror.
Yeah. People have a problem with that, and they don't understand. You really are going to have a hard time loving others if you can't love yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what does it mean to love yourself? It's not, oh, look at me, I'm so beautiful, and I love me, and I can't get enough of me. It's, I love that person, and I'm going to take care of that person. I'm going to take care of that person first, because that person needs care so that person can help other people. I need to have the energy and the health and the ability and the sound mind to be able to listen and counsel or advise, relate to. I can't do that if I don't take care of myself.
Yeah. Yeah. I think of every relationship we have as a mirror. Like right now, fundamentally, and this goes a little more deep into like spirituality and philosophy, but I view the world in a way where this is Justin talking to Justin through a mirror named Michael or Dr. Haley. And this is you talking to you through a mirror named Justin. That's really how we relate. And I bring people back to caretaking for a child, right? If all of a sudden I am in charge of caring for a baby, that baby doesn't have to earn my love, doesn't have to earn my caretaking. And if I feed that baby something that its body can't handle and then it vomits or goes to the bathroom, I'm not like, oh, what a dumb baby. His stupid body is broken. It's when you really look at it, it sounds a little ridiculous to say it like that. But
right.
I try to help people see if someone comes to me and they're 200 pounds overweight and they're drinking 10 Pepsis a day, and I suggest maybe they don't drink the 10 Pepsis a day, there's one lens of reality that makes them say, oh, here's another nutritional therapist taking away my favorite thing, and this sucks, and getting healthy is the worst, and blah, blah, blah. Or there's the lens of, okay, I now understand that Pepsi is poison. It's not good for me. And I love myself so much that I would never knowingly put that into my body, the same way I wouldn't poison a baby.
Yeah. And I think people get confused and they're afraid that loving themselves is selfish. No.
Sure.
It's not selfish in the sense that you're, focused on loving yourself so much. It's selfish in the sense that I care about my ability, my health, my wellness. I'm going to take care of the person in the mirror. I love the fact that you start with that.
You enjoying the show thus far? One of the many health secrets that we have covered on the show is all around aloe vera, specifically drinking raw aloe vera. Our aloe vera has helped our customers effectively heal their gut, increase their intestine health, lower inflammation in the body, eliminate and/or decrease acid reflux, have glowing skin and hair, and so much more. Now, as a frequent member of our audience, you will be exposed to exclusive specials and coupon codes for the awesome products manufactured by Haley Nutrition. That's right, for simply being awesome and tuning in. You can get a mini discount to help you optimize and better your health. To see how we can help and support you on your health journey, tune into the episodes and listen for coupon codes that you can use at www.haleynutrition.com before you make your orders of raw aloe vera. Once again, it's www.haleynutrition.com. Now, back to the show.
What gets in the way besides, people not knowing how to love themselves? Is it trauma related? Something happened to them that they can't love themselves? What do you find?
Yeah, all the above. Trauma is huge, but also so is programming, right? Like there's an amazing book that I love called Weapons of Mass Instruction that talks about like the founding documents of public school in America, right? So we really have a massive issue that I call the illusion of authority. So we have been taught our whole lives to suppress our own emotions and suppress our own feelings and listen to what we're told to do. Usually it's just grown-ups, it's our parents first, and then you're in school, right? Like you have to go to the bathroom, your body's giving you a clear signal, and you have to raise your hand and say, may I please use the restroom? And some other authority has the power to say, no, you sit there and you hold it and be quiet because we're doing a lesson, right? Like we're really taught that we are not worthy, that we're not valuable, that we are kind of to be ignored. And then you get into the other aspect, like I'm a huge fan of studying religion and theology and these sorts of things. There is a sort of martyrdom that is built into our programming of like, it always has to be for others. And then people get that twisted because like I work with almost exclusively 85% of my clients are middle-aged women and mostly moms. And there's this sort of programming of mommy martyrdom where you'll find these women that are like 200 pounds overweight and they're just eating whatever is fast. Like, I got to grab a bagel because my kid's got to I got to drive them to school, and then I got to drive them to soccer practice, and then I got to make cookies for the PTA meeting, and then I got to take them to the church meeting, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, they're on the back burner. They're never taking care of themselves. Or as you'd say it in an airplane, right? They never put their oxygen mask on first. They're busy putting everyone else's oxygen masks on, and they become less capable of service to other. So their mood with their children is all over the place. Maybe sometimes they're snappy, sometimes they're tired. They're setting a terrible example for how their children should eat and take care of themselves, right? As Coach Peter Crone says, your children will do a terrible job listening to you. They will do an amazing job becoming you. So you have to understand, if you're not taking care of yourself, what you are giving to society is far below what you are actually capable of. And therefore, not caring for self is a selfish act. You're not, if you want to look at it as like, well, it's selfish to think of myself first, I need to think of everyone else first. If you're actually thinking of everyone else first, then you should want to show up at your best every day in a way that can hold their emotions, in a way where you can connect with them and be present, in a way where you can set an example that's going to set your children up to not have the health and wellness issues that you have as an adult. So it's very, very selfish to not put your needs first and not take care of your health, in my opinion.
You said it so much better than me. That's good. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to get across. And the way and I love your example too, on the airplane, putting the oxygen mask on first so that you can help the people that are around you.
Of course.
It's so simple.
Yeah. On its face, it's very simple. And there's the programming issue, and then that's the trauma piece, where the trauma piece becomes, well, it sounds so simple. So when I became a nutritional therapist, it was because the branch of nutritional therapy taught me about epigenetics. I was very, very interested in like the code of the computer. How do we literally have ribosomes create proteins and express genes differently? I was like, this is fascinating, right? The therapist piece, I did not realize that I was going to essentially become a talk therapist and a life coach, which is really what I'm doing. More like the nutrition stuff, honestly, it's dead simple. I give people like 5 pro-metabolic daily habits. I'm like, do this for 90 days, your life will change. The vast majority of people absolutely will not do it. And we have to walk through, why would you not do these incredibly simple things? I don't have people doing 90-minute CrossFit workouts, right? I have them taking 10-minute walks after each meal. It's like, it's not difficult. So we have to assess why they wouldn't do those things. And that's where we get deeply into the self-worth and maybe go back through stored trauma and, do some somatic work and some breath work and move through these things and help them see like, hey, you're operating on faulty programming right now.
It is such a different approach. It's changing the person so that the word you used, the consequence, you think consequences are bad. No, we've had this consequence that is now a good thing. My consequence is I'm going to be a more ideal weight. I'm going to have better energy levels. I'm going to be more present minded. I'm going to be more focused. I'm going to be absorbing, it's a whole different way of addressing optimal health.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think of it as as a holistic web, right? I had a client once, amazing guy. He loved his family so much. And he's talked about these things publicly. I won't say his name or anything, but he's very open to sharing his story. And he was, multiple hundreds of pounds overweight. And he had children and had a spouse and these things. And he was just like on a computer, 18 hours a day, making a fantastic amount of money. And in his mind, it was like, that was his value. Like, my kids don't want for anything. My wife doesn't want for anything. But I was trying to help him see, like, the example that you're giving, the consequence here is your kids are learning that the almighty dollar is worth way more than your health. As long as you are making the dollars, you can eat Chick-fil-A every day. You can sit in a chair for 18 hours a day. You're now spilling out over the chair. You do not have energy. He told me, like, I can't pick my kids up off the ground, right? So it's like the kids can't play with dad. He's not in the backyard playing catch with them. His sex life was non-existent. His partner is like, he's completely dissociated. He doesn't pay attention to me when I'm speaking to him, right? So then you have this holistic web where if we connect the money to the children, we really have a problematic programming that's being instilled in that child. So that child, again, is going to do a great job becoming you. Whereas if he could get the health and wellness right, and we connect the health and wellness to his money, he could probably make more money in less hours because he'd have better cognitive function and he would learn to work smarter, not harder, which would then improve his relationship with his kids because he'd have more time with his kids. His wife would see him spending more time with his kids and she would feel better about him. They can connect. His health is there, so his libido's there. Now they can connect on an intimate level. And this entire web is fully interconnected.
That's
and
awesome.
if you ignore any piece of the puzzle, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, I love it. When you talk about being in a hurry and the things that get in the way and the mom that, well, I'm just going to grab something quick and go and stuff. Are there some hacks for having the right nutrition on the go, on the fly? What do you do when you travel and you don't have your refrigerator with you with all the good foods in it?
Sure.
What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, we are lucky to live in time where there are, I want to say, I don't know that I'd say they're like fantastic for you, but there are healthy substitutes for just about everything, right? Like Unreal Candy makes a Snickers bar that doesn't have red dye and hydrogenated vegetables oils in it, right? Like, yes, these things are more expensive, so there's a budget constraint there, but you can get a replacement for just about any junk food you love if you really want to go that route. The other route is to, again, stick to single ingredient, nutrient dense whole foods. A lot of what I was doing as I was building Clovis in the early years, I was still deeply in my professional musician career. So I was playing, I mean, at that time when I started Clovis, still probably doing at least 200 to 250 shows a year. I was on the road constantly. And it's interesting the way people don't notice this, but like you could pull into a parking lot where there's like a Chipotle and a Starbucks or like a McDonald's, and a quarter mile down the street is a Kroger or a Trader Joe's or an H-E-B. And you can walk in there and you can grab an RX bar or an organic banana, or you can go to the deli section and say, hey, can you give me a half pound of like organic turkey, and grab some turkey or grab a coconut water, right? It's just like, it's right there at your disposal in the same length of time it takes to stop at the Chick-fil-A or something like that. Yep. And it's far better for you. So I always tell people, these things are not necessarily hard, but they are different.
Right.
So it's just, you have these patterns and these habits built in, and we just need to reprogram and point them in another direction. It's especially in America, it is extremely easy to travel and eat well. I always tell people, like, Walmart is the single biggest carrier of organic produce in the world. So even when people talk about food deserts and all this stuff, it's like wherever you can get to, an Aldi, an H-E-B, a Kroger, a Buc-ee's, right? You can go to a Buc-ee's and find grass-fed beef jerky. For sure you can find that. It's there. You just need to know where to look.
Yeah. Yeah. I like it. That's kind of one of my hacks. If I'm traveling, I might have my dinner at Whole Foods.
Sure. Yeah,
Why
exactly.
not?
Why not?
Grab something out of the produce section.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk a little bit about what kind of foods people should be eating, and a little disclaimer for the people that are listening here. We're all different, and we all have different needs. A lot of my audience might be fighting a horrible condition. They might be trying to increase their immune system, and in such a case, plant foods are medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Other people are, trying to fuel for playing in the NFL.
Yeah.
So we all have some different needs, and you talked about nutrient dense foods. What's a balanced diet look like for most people?
Yeah, I love that you said that too, because my spectrum of clients, right? I do nutrition and weight cuts for professional cage fighters. And then I'm working with, sedentary middle-aged moms that are like driving to the soccer practice, so it's, of course, everyone is dramatically different. And I also love what you said. It's one of my favorite things that I think of plants in nature as nature's pharmaceuticals. It's like, these are medicine that can heal you, that can make different things happen within the body, right? But generally speaking, we're talking about nutrient density per gram, right? And if anybody wants this, you go to Justin Nault Official on Instagram, send me a message and just tell me you want my foods list and I'll give it to you. It's over 110 foods to choose from, a ton of variety. They're all single ingredient, nutrient dense whole foods, and they're hand selected for both nutrient density and bioavailability. So it's not just, does this food contain these nutrients on paper? It's, can the human metabolism access those nutrients? Right? Is it surrounded by things like anti-nutrients that can block absorption? Right. So this is like, when you talk about people that are dealing with illnesses and chronic conditions and things like that, the primary thing I'm trying to do is increase your metabolic rate. That's the number one thing I want to do. If we increase your metabolic rate, for example, if I can increase your core body temperature, for every 1 degree Fahrenheit, I increase your core body temperature, certain viruses, their replication rate drops by a factor of 200x.
Wow.
So what we're doing is we're raising the environment, the internal environment, in a way that doesn't invite illness, chronic conditions, parasites, bacterial overgrowths, all these things. A lot of people are attacking those symptoms without just increasing the metabolic rate. The fastest way to improve immune system is to increase your metabolic rate. You know, it's actually I'm sure you know this, but like there are these cases in hospitals where people have very serious, like late stage cancer, and they end up with an infection when they're in the hospital, and it drives a massive fever. They're running at 103, 104 degrees for 24 hours or whatever. The fever finally drops down, and the person is literally cancer free. It's astonishing. And they consider these miraculous miracles. How did this happen? Whatever. It's like, no, the fever is the body's first line of defense. This is the immune system working in overdrive. You know, so metabolic rate is a huge factor in a lot of these chronic conditions, which is why like page 1 of my foods list is called super proteins. These are animal proteins that are gram for gram the most nutrient dense in the world, meaning they have the most vitamins and minerals per bite of food. This is where you have like your oysters, your mollusks, your shrimp, your beef liver, bone broth with collagen protein, all these vitamins and minerals, those kinds of things, right? So we want to get at least a few servings of those every day across the board. Or even sometimes I'll do protein sparing modified fasts with clients where they're just drinking bone broth every day, and it's miraculous results. So that's really what we're focusing on is vitamins and minerals, nutrient density per gram, and can your body absorb those things? Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love some of the words that you use too. For instance, you said beef liver.
Yes.
For too many people, it's beef. And, you know, we have chicken. Well, what is broth? How many people had turkey on Thanksgiving and they took all the meat and then they just got rid of the rest?
Yeah.
Hopefully you took what was left and maybe simmered it down, and maybe 8 hours later ran it through a strainer and had the most nutritious part of the turkey in that
Yeah.
broth with all the collagens and the glucosamines and chondroitins and the things that not only heal your joints but heal your gut.
Yeah.
You know, we're so conditioned to food comes from a grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
And meat is the meat, and the rest of it was just discarded.
Yeah.
Have you ever killed your own animal before eating it?
I have, yes, many times.
I think that's so important because when
Mm-hmm.
you do that, there's a certain almost spiritual thing that happens.
Yes, I totally agree.
You have you understand there was an exchange,
Mm-hmm.
a life exchange, and all of a sudden, that whole animal becomes a lot more important. It's not going to be, I'm just going to have a couple bites and throw the rest away.
Right.
And as you're consuming the various parts of it, there's different nutrients in different organs, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say beef liver, you know, you're getting more than just the muscle from the animal.
Yeah. Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it's cool too when you kill, not, you know, that spiritual thing that happens. It kind of helps you understand saying grace.
Mm,
You know, it's a whole different meaning now as you're
absolutely.
saying, God, thank you for this nutrition that's before me. You know,
Yeah. I love that you said that. If anyone's in Tennessee, I lived in Nashville for 13 years. And one of my favorite stories is I tend to get my meat from local farmers. I look for local regenerative farms. Also, if anyone wants to watch, there's a documentary film called Sacred Cow that was released in 2016. It's on Amazon Prime. Just Google Sacred Cow. And my company Clovis helped fund that with two of my friends, Rob Wolf and Diana Rogers. And it is incredible for learning about ethical farming practices. And so anyway, if you're living in Tennessee, go visit the people at Tennessee Grass-Fed. Tennessee Grass-Fed is a regenerative, 100% grass-fed, 100% grass-finished farm. And this guy every day goes out in the field with an acoustic guitar, and his cows gather around, and he plays guitar for his cows.
that's awesome.
And every time an animal is slaughtered, which is, the primary focus of this farm, they have beautiful lives. They're rotational grazing. They're out in the sun. Everything is beautiful. And then has like a full blown ceremony between himself and this animal. And they're like super calm. They're like groomed and petted and like calmed in this beautiful way. And like gently they mosey their way into the location where the slaughtering is going to happen. There's no stress hormones being spiked or anything like that. It's just an instant, boom, they're gone. And then there's so much gratitude for this experience. It's astounding, right? And then this is where you get into another amazing book I love people to check out is a book called The Vegetarian Myth. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but it was a woman who was a vegan for like 20 years and was like desperately trying to do no harm. So she started doing her own farming practice. And then she's like, well, wait, all these slugs are destroying my crops. And what do I do about these slugs? So then she's like, okay, well, I don't want to kill the slugs. So she got ducks, and then the ducks come and the ducks eat the slugs. So the slugs are being killed by the duck. And she had this whole spiral in her brain. She's like, no matter what I do to feed myself, other creatures have to die, no matter what, even if I'm eating exclusively plants. So, and this is where the spiritual component comes in, where you have to look around at this beautiful little reflective holosphere we have that is our astonishing universe and look at a way in which we can coexist with it, right? When a lion takes down a gazelle, you don't think this lion is absolutely evil. What a terrible creature and doing so much harm in the world. You know, it's like the lion is taking exactly as much as it needs from nature, no more, no less. And it's operating within this ecosystem. And then that carcass, whatever the lion doesn't take, goes on to feed the vultures and the rodents and the bugs and this, and what, you know, is this just this beautiful ecosystem. Yeah. But death is always an inevitable part of that.
Yeah. It's interesting to see how humane animals can be when they kill too. And I remember my kids had a snake. And the first time that snake killed, it wasn't so pretty.
Yeah.
The snake learned this rat is suffering. And the next time it took a rat, it latched on and choked it out, which puts it out quickly, but it held on to that chokehold until that rat was good and dead. It didn't allow that rat to experience coming back to life as it was getting eaten.
Wow.
Yeah. And so they learn, you know, death is a fact of life. There is an exchange that happens, and it's not with evil intent. It's just who we are, how we live. It is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love, you know, to circle back, I think the best part of everything that we just said between the two of us in this topic is you're like, it sheds a whole new light on giving grace.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like having thanks for this thing that is literally fueling your machinery to make you who you are.
I agree. You have some pretty cool supplements, and tell me about the protein and what's in it.
Sure. Yeah. So the Daily Superfood Powder is I guess it would be called flagship product for my supplement line. And that is what started as the baby formula that I made in the kitchen for Savannah, my niece. It's collagen protein, 11 grams of collagen protein. It has 6 billion CFU of probiotics. It has vitamin B12, has vitamin C, it has electrolytes, it has MCT oil, it has turmeric, it has organic cacao, it has all the things. I basically just took, and the thing is, like, this is a quote unquote processed food. And the only thing that is used to process this food is dehydrators and very, very high powered water in a way that can cleave proteins, right? So it's a processed food, but it's ultimately almost like freeze dried, dehydrated whole foods. And then you add it to water or your almond milk or whatever you want to use. Most of my clients actually put it in their black coffee. They blend it into black coffee and it's a delicious chocolatey drink, you know? But what I was attempting to do with the supplement line Clovis was looking at things. I'd gone down all the rabbit holes of soil nutrient density and the most common micronutrient deficiencies in America, right? I make another capsule product called Daily Serenity that is magnesium because 2/3 of Americans, adults, are deficient in magnesium. So all we're trying to do with supplements is we're not trying to do better than nature. We're trying to support the fact that we're so far disconnected from nature these days that we do need a little bit of help, unless we are like everything we're getting is from our local regenerative farmer, and virtually no Americans are living that way. So if you're not living that way, you may need some support and taking products that are just replenishing some of those micronutrients that you would be missing, but you're basically supplementing whole foods, if that makes sense. That's what I'm trying to do with all of my products.
No, it does make sense. Chances are people aren't getting the collagen, for instance,
Yes, exactly.
because they're eating the muscle and that's it. When it comes to probiotics, everything that we're getting is cooked, killed, sterilized.
Mhm.
And I did notice the probiotic that you have in yours is the Bacillus subtilis,
Mhm.
which, from what I've seen, all the probiotics that seem to work have that particular strain in it.
Yes,
I
exactly.
noticed it with the BioCult, and I think it's in the microbiome labs. They make the Megaspore. I
Yeah,
think that's
Megaspore.
I think that's in that one as well, and I've seen really good results with those particular probiotics. And the
Yes.
big common denominator is the Bacillus subtilis. I also like the concept of powdered foods for convenience sake. When I travel, I'm taking my powdered foods with me
Mhm.
just in case I need a quick fix.
Mhm. Yeah.
So they're convenient and they're meeting the needs of the things that aren't normally included in our diet. It makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And also the concept of when we talk about immune function, right? Like the digestive system is the same way, right? Everything I'm trying to do with increasing metabolic rate is making your cells create more energy. The more energy we have, the better. So if you are suffering from a low energy state in your metabolism, your digestion is also going to suffer. So when people have low metabolic rate, these powders that you're adding to water and everything can be unbelievably beneficial because they're so easy on the digestive system, and that's where things come in. And there's so much villainization around fruit juice or fruit sugar and all these things like natural sugar versus whatever. But it's like really like something like coconut water is a fantastic choice for someone whose digestive system doesn't really work well to get some electrolytes, to get some sugar. So for the cells that need glucose, that kind of thing. It's like, can we make the digestive process as easy on the body as possible when someone's coming to us in a less than ideal health state?
Sure. Yeah. Or aloe vera.
Yeah, for sure.
See, I got it growing right behind me here.
Amazing. Yeah. Just a shot a
Uh,
day, man. That's it.
all kinds of electrolytes and great for digestion.
That's a truly unique product. If I don't know, is that something that you sell?
That is actually my number one product.
Oh,
And
amazing.
it,
Yeah.
it, you know what's pretty cool about it too, because as you talk about the sugars, a lot of
Mhm.
people don't realize that aloe vera is primarily made up of sugars,
Yeah.
but it's a specific sugar, mannose, which this is interesting, especially people that like low sugar diets, people that feel better in a near ketotic state.
Hmm.
It's actually when they gave it to rats that were in ketosis, they stayed in ketosis.
Whoa.
Diabetics take it because it actually lowers and stabilizes their blood sugar levels. And the
Mm.
coolest thing about it that I found out is that that particular sugar molecule, cancer cells will bind to it because they love sugar, but they can't use it for energy. And
Interesting.
they can't release it. So it kind of takes up that sugar binding site. So they can't consume the glucose and it causes them to starve. So, some unique things with the aloe vera that I keep on learning more and more about it. I hope you're enjoying this podcast. As a thank you for tuning in, this month, use the coupon code BLESSING, that's BLESSING, for 10% off your entire purchase at HaleyNutrition.com now through the end of January 2025. You can use the coupon to save on top of the already discounted bundled prices. As an example, if you were picking up 3 canisters of Haley Pro vegan protein powder, 3 canisters is already discounted by 20% off the single can price. You can use the coupon for an additional 10% off the already discounted price. And if you were getting a case of 12, it's already discounted 30% per canister. Take an additional 10% off with this coupon code now through the end of January 2025. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of the podcast. Good stuff.
Yeah.
When
That's
it comes
fascinating.
to metabolism,
Mhm.
how much does diet have to do with it, and how much does exercise have to do with it?
Oh, I love this question, man. 'Cause, when you spoke about RFK coming into light, it's, RFK is not saying anything I don't know how to say this without sounding like a hipster or something, but like RFK is not saying anything that I haven't been saying on my podcast for 8 years. It's just that 8 years ago, everyone who said these things was called a quack, was accused of misinformation, blah, blah, blah. And it's always like the kind of bro science, like calories in, calories out. If you are in a calorie deficit, you will be the healthiest ever, right? And I think that's absolute nonsense. I think some of the worst advice we've ever given is telling people to eat less food. But they love to say, you can't change your metabolic rate that much. And they're looking at the wrong thing. They're looking at NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis or something like that. It's like me talking or moving my fingers or whatever is like burning a specific number of calories. What they're not looking at is your metabolic rate, your resting metabolic rate, which is like if I laid on the couch for 24 hours with my eyes closed and did nothing but breathe and let my blood pump, right? How many calories would I burn at rest? That accounts for over 70% of your total daily energy expenditure. So if I can increase your metabolic rate, you're going to have more energy available. And yes, it's going to require more energy. You're going to burn more calories at rest. And then when you go exercise, like if you're massively exercising every day, you might squeak out an extra 300 to 500 calories in like your total energy expenditure, right? It makes a lot more sense to go impact the 70% of your daily calorie burn. And this is assuming that you're living by calories in, calories out, and assuming that that model is like perfect for health and wellness. So, I mean, it's mostly metabolism. And then even when it gets to exercise, all the different pathways of what substrate you're burning for fuel and the different energy sources and that kind of thing, that's still going to be dictated by your metabolism and how your cells are functioning. So metabolism drives absolutely everything. You know, and another example of this is in clinical studies, depressed and anxious subjects generate on average about 20% less ATP, cellular energy, than non-depressed and anxious subjects. So, I mean, your metabolism is the driver of everything, absolutely everything. I think it's the single most important aspect of health and wellness.
Yeah, yeah. I'm still a little confused though on what is actually increasing the metabolism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So generally speaking, these are the nutrients, like the vitamins and minerals, right? So that you have your micronutrients, which are the vitamins and minerals that act like cofactors and enzymes in the body. And then you have the energy substrates, which is like your fat, your glucose, right? Fatty acids and glucose, we'll say fat and sugar, that are broken down and then used for energy. So this is where things get a little bit nerdy, and we can talk about like seed oils and metabolic disruptors and things like that. But you're either burning sugar or you're burning fatty acids. And you have, glycolysis or beta oxidation at the very top. And then downstream, things move into the citric acid cycle. And then from the citric acid cycle, they move into the last step of energy production, which is the electron transport chain. And that's where ATP is generated through the phospholipid membrane, right? So every single one of those stages, right, there's 8 steps in the citric acid cycle. They all require these sort of cofactors and enzymes. These are the micronutrients. So if you could have a diet and we see this today with a term called sarcopenic obesity. These are patients who are considered clinically obese, at least 30 pounds or more overweight, and they have very low skeletal muscle mass, and in some cases, osteoporosis. So it's like, wait a second, they have no muscles, their bones are basically disintegrating, they're storing body fat, and we're telling them to eat less calories. The focus on calories is what's literally killing that person. Because they may be eating 2,500, 2,000, 3,000 calories a day, but those are, this term empty calories. They don't have vitamins and minerals. If you're eating like a low-fat cracker, there's no vitamins and minerals in there. Mm. So it's actually the micronutrients that are the main driver of increasing that metabolic rate, which is why everything I do focuses on nutrient density. So you can eat, 2,000 calories of strawberry Pop-Tarts, or you could eat 2,000 calories of red meat, eggs, wild-caught fish, some organic fruits and veggies, right? And your metabolism is going to behave, significantly differently than it would with these sorts of empty calories. So it's really the micronutrients that are driving that increase in metabolic rate, but also important that as we ramp up the metabolism, we have enough of the energy macros to fuel that energy production. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Because I wasn't sure if it was, the food choices that we make affect our hormone levels. And, people that are eating sugars don't have the hormones to drive the metabolism. Or, I wasn't really sure what the mechanism was.
Well, if I can touch on that too, that it's really important, right? Because every single thing that your body does, from hormone production to blinking your eyelids, is a result of energy production in the body. So if you have low energy, you are going to have low testosterone. or low progesterone as a woman, right? So if you don't have enough energy to fuel these things, like hypothyroid is usually as easy as increasing the energy available in the body and doing it through nutrient dense whole foods. So it's like everything is a result of metabolism. Or when someone says like, I have adrenal fatigue, I'm like, okay, adrenal fatigue is downstream. We got to go back upstream and see what's causing that. I use the analogy of like a river. There's like a village on top of a mountain, and this village just throws all their trash in the river, and the trash goes down the river into another town at the bottom of the mountain where there's a big lake, and the lake's loaded with trash. And the villagers down at the bottom of the lake, they're just scooping trash out every single day. And every day there's more trash, and they're trying to handle this trash, which is like adrenal fatigue. Or they could go up to the thyroid town and address the issue that's happening at the level of the thyroid that's leading to a low energy state that's causing the adrenals to pump stress hormones to try to function in this way because they are desperately trying to get enough energy to just survive. Like, go up the mountain and teach that village a waste management system, and then you don't have to clean the river every day. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. I like the analogies. You got some good ones.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I think it's really important. Someone told me once, I think there's an Einstein quote that says something like, if you can't explain something to a kindergartner, you don't understand it, or something like that. So I just spent a lot of years just like, okay, how can I make this make sense? Because it's ridiculous to think that someone who has, a 40-hour-a-week career and 3 kids and a spouse and is like, well, what are you going to do? Go study biochemistry for fun? It's like, you don't have time. We try to break these things down in a dead simple way.
Yeah. I'd love to hear about one of your favorite testimonial transformations where someone thought maybe they were coming for weight loss, yet left with something completely different.
Yeah. There are so many to choose from. Based on this conversation, I think one that I would like the best is probably Jenny. Jenny is amazing. Jenny did a podcast with me. Her story is very public, and I have consent to share all of her before and after pictures and everything. She had ended up hospitalized actually because she was following such low calorie diets. And she's a very tall woman. She's like 6'1" or 6'2". And she was following these diets that were like 1,200 calories a day, 1,300 calories a day, 1,000 calories a day, whatever. She actually followed a specific YouTube influencer and ended up on something called the banana diet, where all she did was eat bananas because she was so desperate to try to get this weight off. And meanwhile, she's just destroying herself. She's doing 90-minute workouts, high intensity workouts every single day. The weight's not budging. Her before picture is really like, oh no, this person is like in a really bad spot. So she comes to me. We're cleaning up the diet. We give her some macros and everything. And I asked her, I said, you need to give me at least 30 to 60 days without all the high intensity exercise. And she's like, okay, got you. So I'm trusting her that she's doing all the things. She says she's eating the food, she's hitting the macros and all these different things and telling me what's happening, and the weight's not budging. And it was about 30 days in. I know all of my programs are guaranteed. If they don't work for you, I will hand you your money back. It's going to work, period, right? So I got on a call with her, and we're face-to-face like this. And I said, hey, you got to tell me what's going on. You got to tell me what potential disruptors are here that are blocking you from getting the results that you want. And she said, well, I got to be honest with you. I'm still working out 90 minutes to 2 hours a day. I'm still doing the super high intensity exercise and blah, blah, blah. Now, keep in mind, I had created a plan for her based on her just going for light walks, right? So now there's a huge energy deficit. Her body is in an ultra stress state, or cortisol spiked, all these things. And I said, I'm going to be real with you here. You have to do what I tell you to do, and you got to give up this high intensity exercise, or we can't work together anymore. So we had like this sort of come to Jesus moment. She says, okay, she agreed. 7 days later, she was down 11 pounds.
Wow.
She went out to lose over 67 pounds in the time that we worked together. And now, I mean, I don't know, she may be down over 100 pounds. I have some people that continue after our work together, and multiple stories of people losing 100 pounds. And what's crazy about that story is once it clicked for her, she's like, wow, I was abusing myself. I was like actually abusing myself and causing a problem with something that society has told me was healthy, right? Once that clicked, she was able to look around her life and say, what else is toxic? So now the base of the pyramid's handled. We're healing her body. She's getting plenty of nutrients, which is changing the way she's thinking. Her cognitive function's changing. She's showing up better for her kids. And she immediately realized, I'm not spending enough time with my kids. She quit her job started her own business, started making more money in less time, spending more time with her family. And then she took up her own mobility practice, which is something I recommend to some people called Gold Medal Bodies, a program called GMB that has really, really foundational, like beginner friendly sort of movement practices. So now she has a movement practice that she loves. She's no longer punishing her body. And she's usually doing it outside in the sunshine, bare feet in the grass. I mean, it transformed her entire life. Her testimony is fantastic.
That is transformation.
Yes.
Everything's different.
Everything's different. Yeah.
Oh, man. I love it. I love it. What's the right amount of exercise?
That's a critically important question because it's different for each and every individual, right? I love training. Like I said, I was deadlifting 400 plus pounds, right? It's like I am purple belt in jiu-jitsu, all these different things. Like I love training, but I used to do it very masochistically. I had low self-worth. So it's like, well, I have to be this savage guy or I'm not worth anything, right? David Goggins style, right? Like I'm not facing any of my internal demons. I'm just running from them with this addiction to exercise. So some people are going to come to me and that 10-minute walk, it's one of my daily non-negotiables. For every full meal you have, after the meal, you step outside, you set a timer on your phone for 5 minutes and you take a leisurely walk in the sun. And when the timer goes off, you turn around and you come home. That's your 10-minute walk post-meal. That's it. Preferably do that 3 times a day if you have 3 full meals a day. For some people, that's actually going to be all that their body can handle with it still being beneficial to them. For me, I can handle a tremendous amount of stress on my body and a tremendous amount of physical activity that is actually still beneficial for my metabolic system. But I have a 20-year history of athletics, 20 plus years, So this is why I always tell people to meet themselves where they are. Because if you've been sedentary, and this is where we get to right around the corner is New Year's resolutions. Right? So it's like, I'm going to go from sedentary doing nothing to eating 1,300 calories a day. And I'm going to go to Planet Fitness and I'm going to work out 5 days a week. And Monday is chest and biceps and Tuesday is back and triceps. And I got a personal trainer to do this thing. Saturday comes and they're like horribly sore. They're super hungry. They have low energy. Like, what is this? And I think the statistic is like 85% of people ditch their New Year's resolution before February even begins. Right? That's why you're doing too much too soon, which is also the exact opposite of an act of self-love. Yeah. You are sending a signal to yourself, you are not good enough as you are, and you better step it up, and you better get your butt in the gym. I don't care how tired you are. You need to go there. This is what healthy people do. And this is why we have all these stories in society that getting healthy sucks, or getting healthy is hard, or no pain, no gain. I always tell people, there's nothing you're going to do for your health that's good for you long-term that feels bad. It's like getting healthy should be an enjoyable experience for sure. Right. So just meet yourself where you are. Like drink a glass of water and go for a walk. You don't need to go join a CrossFit gym.
I agree. And, especially when it comes into, people that starting too fast, going in too hard and doing too much, and it's a bad experience and they drop out. I completely agree with it. If you're going to start going back to the gym, that first workout doesn't have to be heavy. It doesn't have to have that many repetitions, probably not even more than one set of each body part. Nice and easy. Turn the muscles back on. Don't have a bad experience. And then maybe next time you do a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Ease into it.
If you can think of it as a marathon, not a sprint, that makes the most sense. Like if you are making changes to shift your identity and live as a healthy person, you now have the rest of your life to increase the weight or increase the reps or whatever. You're going on a journey that is a lifelong journey. That's really the thing is like, are you looking for an identity shift? Because there's a false belief people have of like, well, I'll be healthy after I lose 100 pounds. No. You make a light switch decision to live as a healthy person today. And your body will have no choice but to manifest optimal health and wellness because you are a healthy person.
That's beautiful. I think people have 2 options here. A lot of people do need the help. They need more information. We touched on some stuff today. There's so much more. And I think people have 2 options. One is either subscribe where they can get more information. And the other one would be to probably schedule an appointment with you. Where are the 2 best places to do that, to either subscribe for more information, or where would they go to schedule a one-on-one with you?
Yeah, at this point, for anything working with me, I run it through Instagram. So all of my social media handles are at Justin Nault Official. That's everywhere. If you search Justin Nault, it'll pop right up. Go to Instagram, follow me because you're going to get a lot of free, valuable advice there. And then click the message button. And anytime you message me, it's me. You're dealing with me directly. It's not a team member or something like that. And just tell me that you heard me on a podcast. Ask me questions about what resonated for you. If you want the foods list, I'll send you the foods list. If you want to talk exercise, we'll talk exercise. I'm there to just converse with you, have a conversation, and see where you're at and see if I can help you. And if you want to work together, we can work together. And if you're just looking for some freebies and you want to go do your own research and stuff, I'll point you in the right direction.
That's awesome. Justin, this is one of my favorite podcasts yet.
Oh,
You're
man,
top notch.
thank you.
You're awesome.
Wow, thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that episode today on The Dr. Haley Show. Make sure to hit subscribe on whichever platform you are listening to this. If this episode made you think of someone, go ahead, take a screenshot, and share this exact episode with them. You can catch the show notes for this episode on www.drhaley.com. If you want to geek out with Dr. Michael Haley on other radical health topics, be sure to check out his YouTube channel, where he posts exclusive video content. All the details are at www.drhaley.com, and we can't wait to hang out with you on the next episode.